In a quiet valley where the mountains whispered secrets to the wind, there was a man named Ethan Callahan. He had seen too much, carried too many scars, and felt like he'd lost his way in the world. But when fate brought him face to face with Blizzard, a warhorse who had been broken by battle and left behind, Ethan found himself on the edge of a new journey. A journey that would test his limits, challenge his beliefs, and ultimately teach him how to heal both himself and another soul. Where are you watching from? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss another tale that might just change someone's life. The sun hung low over Sentinel Valley, casting long shadows across the frost-covered ground. The air smelled sharp, like winter itself, and the silence was thick enough to cut. Ethan Callahan stood at the edge of a paddock, hands tucked deep into his worn jacket pockets, staring at the black horse inside. Blizzard wasn't just any horse. His coat was dark as night, his muscles tense, and his eyes held a wildness that spoke of trauma and fear. No one could get close to him, not even the most seasoned trainers. They called him unbreakable, untamable, a monster. But Major Whitaker saw something different. "You're not just saving a horse, son," he said, his voice steady but hopeful. "You're showing the rest of us there's a way back." Ethan didn't know if he believed it. All he knew was that he couldn't walk away. Not when Blizzard reminded him so much of himself. Ethan had always been good with horses. Growing up on a small farm in Montana, he'd spent every waking moment around them, learning their rhythms, understanding their moods, feeling their trust. But the army changed everything. War took his innocence, his peace, and sometimes his hope. When he returned home after years of service, he thought he'd find solace in the familiar. Instead, he found emptiness. The ghosts of combat haunted him, and the weight of what he'd seen crushed his spirit. He tried to work with horses again, hoping they'd help him heal, but nothing seemed to stick. Then came the call from Camp Sentinel, a rehabilitation center for wounded military horses. Major Whitaker needed someone who understood trauma, not just in animals, but in people. Someone who could see past the surface and find the heart beneath. Ethan hesitated. He wasn't sure he had anything left to give, but something about Blizzard pulled him in. Maybe it was the way the horse stood still, alert but wary, as if waiting for someone to prove they were worth trusting. Or maybe it was the quiet desperation in his eyes. So he packed his bags and drove north, toward the mountains, toward a chance to start again. The camp was nestled in the shadow of tall pines, surrounded by rolling hills and endless sky. It was cold, but there was a warmth here, too, a sense of purpose, of second chances. Ethan met Keller, Whitaker's assistant, a woman with sharp eyes and a gentle smile. She showed him around, pointing out stalls filled with horses who'd been through hell. "Not all make it," she said softly, "but we do what we can." Ethan nodded, though part of him wondered if he could do anything at all. Blizzard's stall was at the far end of the paddocks, separated from the others. When Ethan approached, the horse tensed immediately, ears pinned back, nostrils flaring. "This is your first time meeting him?" Keller asked. Ethan swallowed hard. "Yeah." She gave him a reassuring look. "Take your time. He'll let you know when he's ready." Ethan stepped closer, slowly, cautiously. He didn't speak. He didn't reach out. He just watched, letting Blizzard decide whether or not to acknowledge him. For a long while, nothing happened. Then, ever so slightly, Blizzard shifted his head, as if curious despite himself. Ethan exhaled quietly, relief washing over him like a wave. "He's letting you in," Keller said, her voice soft. Ethan didn't respond. He just kept watching, wondering if this was real, or if it was just the beginning of another failure. The next few days were slow, very slow. Ethan spent hours sitting near Blizzard's stall, talking quietly to himself, playing old harmonicas he'd carried since childhood. He didn't push. He didn't demand. He simply existed, showing up every morning, every afternoon, every evening. Blizzard remained guarded. Sometimes he'd nuzzle the fence, sniffing at Ethan's scent. Other times, he'd retreat to the far corner of his stall, refusing to look at anyone. But Ethan didn't care. He knew healing took time. Patience was his only weapon. One morning, as the sun rose over the valley, Ethan noticed something different. Blizzard hadn't moved far from the fence line. His ears flicked toward Ethan, almost imperceptibly. It was small, but it was progress. Ethan smiled, though no one saw it. "You're learning," he murmured. "Slowly, but you're learning." The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Ethan was leading Blizzard around the paddock, using simple commands like walk and stop. The horse followed, stiff but cooperative. Then, without warning, Blizzard turned his head and looked directly at Ethan. For a split second, their eyes met. It was silent, ancient. An unspoken agreement passed between them. Something shifted. "He's letting you ride," Keller said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected this. Not yet. But Blizzard wasn't pulling away. He wasn't resisting. He was standing still, calm, almost trusting. Ethan climbed onto the saddle, careful not to rush. He guided Blizzard gently, following the same patterns they practiced before. Slowly, deliberately. Each step was measured, each command clear. By the end of the session, Blizzard was moving freely, ears flicking to catch Ethan's words, muscles loose and easy. It was a miracle, really, a testament to patience, persistence, and the quiet strength of two souls finding their way back. Word spread quickly through the camp. Colonel Hart, who demanded results, gave a slow, almost reverent nod. Veronica Steele from Stratton Dynamics, a tech company interested in tactical research, whispered to her assistant. Even her sharp expression had softened. But the victory wasn't complete. There was still pressure from higher-ups. They wanted proof that Blizzard could be trained for applied tactical research, automation, and remote warfare. If Ethan failed, Blizzard would be taken away, and the entire program might shut down. Ethan gripped the arms of his chair, jaw tight. "He's a survivor, not a weapon," he said firmly. "They'll break him." Major Whitaker's face was carved with lines of frustration and defeat. "We all answer to someone. Do your best for both of us." Outside, the routine was upended. Horses neighed nervously. Trainers exchanged worried glances. Everyone knew the stakes. Ethan devised a new plan. If Blizzard was to have any chance, he'd need to face his deepest terrors on their terms, not the military's. He brought portable speakers to the paddock, set them at a safe distance, and began to play a soundtrack of war sounds, gunfire, explosions, distant calls. He used hand signals, soft clip whistles, and old cavalry calls echoing from battlefields half a world away. "Steady, boy," he murmured, raising two fingers and letting them fall in a signal every army horse had learned. "Easy at my side." The men watching exchanged glances. Their skepticism dissolved into wonder. For the first time, Blizzard didn't freeze or bolt. He listened. He followed Ethan's hands as if remembering a language he'd once known and almost forgotten. Every now and then, a muscle twitched or a hoof pawed at the floor, but he didn't turn away. Taylor grunted. No one's ever gotten him to do that. Harris offered Ethan a silent thumbs up. Memory is pain, but it's also the only path to healing. We can't erase what happened, but we can learn to live with it. One afternoon, a sudden clap of sound echoed through the valley, a test of the base's alarm system. Blizzard startled, muscles locking but not bolting. Instead, he looked at Ethan, shivering, and then relaxed as Ethan knelt and pressed his forehead to Blizzard's. They stood that way, unmoving, until the noise faded. That night, the command office filled with a storm of tension. Whitaker, Ethan, Keller, the Stratton team, and Colonel Hart gathered around the table. Miss Steele wasted no time. The behavioral metrics are inconsistent. If he cannot be controlled, Stratton will take over. We have the capability to install a cranial device, dampen the amygdala's fear response permanently. Ethan's hands balled into fists. You'll destroy him. What you're proposing is the same as killing a soldier's soul. You can't force a warrior to forget his scars. They're what make him strong. Hart was implacable. This is your last chance, Callahan. Show results or we move forward. As the meeting ended, Whitaker pulled Ethan aside. I know you're right, but they won't wait forever. We're out of time and out of chances. Do what you can. I'm with you, but I can't stop them if you fail. Ethan pressed his palm against the cold glass of the window, watching the line of black SUVs glint beneath the hard winter sun. He knew this was a battle for more than just a horse. That night, as the camp quieted, Ethan devised a final plan. The day of evaluation arrived. Ethan led Blizzard into main arena, where cameras rolled and officials watched closely. The horse was calm, steady, listening intently to Ethan's commands. He responded flawlessly, proving that he could be trusted, respected, and relied upon. Colonel Hart nodded approvingly. "Impressive," he said. "Very impressive." Veronica still frowned. "But can he handle real-world scenarios?" Ethan hesitated. "He's not a machine. He's a living being. If you want to use him, treat him with respect. Otherwise, he'll break." The room fell silent. Then, slowly, applause broke out. Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. He'd done it, not just for Blizzard, but for himself. Later that evening, Ethan received a call from his father, Frank. They talked about the day's events, about the challenges ahead, and about the lessons learned. "You're not just saving a horse, son," Frank said. "You're showing the rest of us there's a way back." Ethan smiled, though his throat tightened. "Thanks, Dad. I needed to hear that." As the conversation ended, Ethan sat on the porch, watching the stars come out. He felt lighter, somehow, like a burden had been lifted. Moral lesson: trust isn't something you demand. It's something you build every day. Failure by failure, triumph by triumph. Don't try to be perfect. Just show up. If you love this story, don't forget to leave a comment below telling us what part touched you the most. And remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another heartfelt journey. See you next time.